let's talk about how your body works. Once you have an infection, once you have sepsis, once you have COVID, once you have flu, once you have HIV, once you have cancer, your body will react to grow T cells, to grow NK cells. How does it react to do that? The only molecule in your body that does that in that reactive mode is IL-15. In 2007, the National Cancer Institute held a workshop that included the FDA, included the NIH, included AACR, included ASH, included everybody, and they did a ranking of 100 plus molecules. IL-15 was ranked number one in 2017 with the potential to cure cancer. Those are the words in the headline of the paper and the report.
All right, guys, good Monday to you. I hope you had a great weekend. Boy, it is never boring. You think about the whole Biden administration. Like, we didn't see the guy for days. And Trump doesn't ever stop. It's a UFC fight Saturday night. Friday night, he was at a MAGA Inc. event. The wars go. I mean, like, there's just nonstop. You don't get the weekends off. It's crazy. But a lot happening on the Democratic side of the aisle. Eric Swalwell, who was very outspoken, because he is very outspoken about the victims in the Epstein files. And I'm just wondering if he's going to be as open and concerned about victims when it comes to himself, because it looks like Mr. Swalwell has done some bad things. In one case, he did this whole creepy thing on Snapchat with an intern, said that he would follow her or asked her to follow him, I guess, so that he could help mentor her on social media. Remind you, this is an intern and a member of Congress who's running for governor of California. And then he starts getting creepy and, I guess, somewhat sexual in nature. This is not the only instance, apparently, multiple instances. I got to be honest with you. I just don't understand how you think you're going to run for governor if you have that. And you've been that outspoken about Trump, Epstein. He voted to expel George Santos, who at the time was definitely a creep, but hadn't been convicted of anything. I wonder how the Democratic members of his own caucus are going to handle this, because aren't we supposed to be believing all these women? At the very least, it's creepy. It's wrong. It's inappropriate. And this is a guy who thinks that he should be the governor of California, just as an FYI. So I say all that. But the real news came on the last day of Al Sharpton's, or I guess it wasn't the last day, Friday, but the last real business day of Al Sharpton's National Action Network 30th anniversary conference. He had Buttigieg and Kamala Harris go. And at the end, he sort of asked the question that I think was on a lot of people's minds. Are you going to run? And this is how she answered.
I tried to be subtle, but I just figured I'd go right
Well,
at it.
that's as subtle as Reverend Al Sharpton could ever be. We love you for many things, but not being subtle. Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it.
I've missed those cackles. I really have. I mean, I just, it was a reminder of how cringy she really is. And like the idea that she's like, I might, like somehow anyone's waiting for this. I mean, the only one who's probably waiting for it is JD Vance, because he's like, wow, we could both beat her, Trump, and then I could. It's sad to think that she actually will probably start off as a front runner for this race. Then she got a little bit weirder and tried to do an impression of Trump mocking his America First foreign policy. Take a listen.
And then he kind of acts like a mob boss. So then he's kind of like, well, you know, you take Eastern Europe, and I'll take the Western Hemisphere. And then you over there, you get Asia. And we'll just divide it up. Right?
Now, here's what I think is so wrong and odd about this. Not only is it just cringy how she's trying to like be funny about it, But as a guy who just wrote a book called Trump 2.0, I talk about the fact that he's putting America back, whether it's tariffs and trade policy, fighting for manufacturing base, equality for our service providers, our manufacturers, our ag community, or whether it's these NATO countries that have been ripping us off, letting us foot the bill, let us put all this money into defense when they don't do anything. I'm not sure how that's a mob boss. I'm really not. I don't know what she was getting at there. And frankly, it should make you question not just how bad she is at impressions, but how bad she is at foreign policy. Because what Donald Trump has done is fought for America. And I've said this before, whether you love him or hate him, and obviously I hope most of you watching do love him, the political easy thing to do was nothing in Iran. Nothing. Kick the can down the road like every other politician of both sides who have claimed that Iran is a threat. Remember, Hillary Clinton said, if I'm president, I'm going to take on Iran. They've all known what the right thing to do was. They just didn't do it. Donald Trump did. And as I said, remember, the political easy thing is to do nothing, to do absolutely nothing. Kick the can down the road for the next president to deal with. But he took action. And it may have cost him some political points here and there. But it was the right thing to do to keep our nation safer. These were a bunch of people that are bad, that want to hurt us. And you got to remember that, because that's the one underwriting thing, is that people always say, like, he didn't have to do anything. The easy thing was to do nothing. Anyway, we have a gangbuster of a show coming your way. If you recall, a few weeks back, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong appeared on the show. He talked about his efforts to cure cancer and the breakthrough drug that he has, and how he has been pushing the U.S. government, the FDA in particular, to approve that drug. Middle East governments have actually approved it. So you can actually travel abroad and get this cancer-saving drug. Here's the funny little dirty secret that's going on now. I get contacted a lot after these shows, a lot, by very important people, some very high-ranking government people, and I know he does too. They say, can you help us? Can you help me? Can you help me, my friend, my family member? I do everything I can. I know he does. But once in a while, if it's a government official, I'll say, why don't you do something in return? Why don't you help make this available for every American so that we don't have to find backdoor ways to get needed drugs that help cure cancer? But here's the thing. After he appeared on our show last time, the FDA sent him a warning letter, a threatening warning letter, to be blunt, saying that he said some bad things, that he violated something, and they threatened him. Let's just be blunt. The stock price tumbled. So he offered to the FDA and to me, I'll come back and I'll correct the record and I'll walk you through this. We're going to do that right now. No one else has this. No one else. We are the only show that you'll see and hear this on, but you need to understand what we're up against, because I'll give you my opinion. We're up against some big, bad, big pharma forces. That's my opinion. And I think I'm right. And I'm going to ask him that question. So I'm excited to have him on. Tomorrow, by the way, RNC Chairman Joe Gruters is going to talk to us about the midterms, where we are. So I'm excited about that. But just, I'm not kidding you. As we lead up to the launch of Trump 2.0, I'm getting a lot of folks on, calling a lot of favors to get some guests on. We've got a big event coming up at the Kennedy Center on May 15th. I'll have some more information. Here's my pledge to you. If you want to travel to come to the Kennedy Center, the Trump Kennedy Center, for my event on Friday, May 15th, just trust me. I will make sure you get in, the tickets, all that kind of stuff. There's a free part of it, and then there's a book part of it later. But if you want to come, I will make sure that we have room for you. Okay. But do me a favor. In the interim, help me with the Amazon rankings and go out there to Amazon.com and buy Trump 2.0. The president has written forward to it. I've poured my life into why this is such a historic moment for us and for this president, and why, and in a way that nobody else will. So please do me a favor. Go to Amazon right now and do that. we have a great week of shows lined up in the lead up to Trump 2.0. With that being said, before I bring in the good doctor, you guys know that wellness has become a big thing, the whole Maha movement. I have a great chapter on Trump 2.0 about this. One quick stat, and I put this in tomorrow's newsletter, I think. Do you realize since 1981, 10 of the 11 FDA commissioners have all gone into big pharma after they served in the government? And the only other one that didn't, number 11, David Kessler, went in academia. These guys all know where the payout is. Why do you think they side with big pharma? Because they're looking for a payday when it's all done. I'm just going to tell you what it's not. I have the receipts in this book that blow your mind. When I tell you, and this will be in tomorrow's newsletter, SeanSpicer.com, it's all free. It will blow your mind how much money these guys spend on lobbying, how much money they spend on ads. They own everybody. And there's a reason why when someone like Dr. Sushung comes along to break up the system, they get panicked because their model depends on you going through the same motions. We're going to talk to him about that. But as I said, before I get into bringing the good doctor in, I value sleep more than ever before. And I've done everything. I've changed my sheets. I've got my Cozy Earth pajamas. You guys hear me talk about it on the huddle. But I take my Beam Dream Powder everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I take my Beam Dream Powder. I take a scoop of it 30 minutes before I go to bed. I put it in some water. I love heating it up for 30 seconds. Some people tell me that and when I'm traveling, I just take regular water. So I don't do it every night. And then, and some people tell me they like milk. It doesn't matter. It's all natural. That's the beautiful thing. Reishi, apigenin, L-theanine, magnesium, melatonin. I've got it down. I love the cocoa one, as you guys know. Some people love the brownie batter. Some people like the peppermint. It doesn't matter. I've tried them all. All the flavors are great. But what counts is that natural blend that they have in there. Trust me when I say you will have an amazing night's sleep. I get asked this more than anything else. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer, shopbeam.com/Spicer. This is the best sale they've ever had, 40% off. I do not know when it's going to end. They don't ever tell me that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It could be another show. It could be another week. But if you are interested in doing what I've done, go to shopbeam.com/Spicer and order yourself some Beam Dream Powder and thank me later. All right, without further ado, I want to bring in the doctor himself, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, to explain what the FDA is doing with these threatening letters. Doctor, welcome back to the show. This is a first for me in 2 years of this show, 3 years of my previous show. I've never had the government call my show out. Let me just start with this. Just explain to people, because again, before even, I wanted to ask you a reaction, but I want to make sure people understand so that I'm framing this right. What you come on the show, we had a great conversation, and then what happened?
Well, what happened is we received a warning letter from the FDA regarding the conversation we had on your show. And I think they were concerned that I was having a conversation under the context of promotion. Okay.
So you're a world-renowned doctor. Like you've done a lot of really mind-boggling things. What was your reaction when you got a letter like this?
Well, obviously I was surprised, but I think, Sean, let me just explain the context maybe of where the FDA came from or coming from.
Okay.
There's really a real tension between the First Amendment of free speech and the FDA's policy of what they call promotional speech. So this tension has been going on for decades, to the sense that actually there's been legal cases now in the courts between pharma and biotech companies and the FDA to try and resolve this issue of what is free speech and what is promotional speech. So as it relates to our broadcast, the FDA considered a direct-to-consumer discussion because obviously your audience is that. And this, as you may know, the administration has now taken on a high priority to crack down on what we call DTC marketing. And I believe over 100 letters has now gone out to pharma with this FDA to multiple pharma companies to relate to this issue of what they consider direct-to-consumer promotional speech. So my reaction is we received this letter in that context as a high priority. And then it elevated to a warning letter relating to two things. One, a TV ad, and two, the Sean Spicer podcast. The TV ad, as it turned out, we never aired the TV ad, and here I am now with you.
Wait. So can Doc, can I be clear on something? So they cited a TV ad as problematic because in their opinion, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to make sure I'm understanding this, because in their opinion, this supposed TV ad would have been a direct to consumer effort. Is that kind of what they would claim?
They would claim exactly what I'm going to clarify today with you. That
okay, but I'm sorry. So I just want to be clear. Was there ever an ad though?
No. What we had to do was because we wanted to make sure the FDA. We sent the FDA, the potential transcript of that ad. An ad never aired. It's never aired at all.
But how would they? I guess what I'm missing here is.
Well, they use the potential transcript or the potential of the ad to have aired.
How did they know there was an ad, though? That's what I'm missing. How did they know there was a potential ad?
Well, as part of our regulatory responsibilities, we would send to the FDA ahead of time.
Oh, I didn't know that. So you show them when you guys are doing in this world. I never knew that. So you got to pre-clear it with them.
Yes, anything that we think is promotional.
Okay, got it.
Okay. But your conversation is obviously is live with your audience, and I want to. I thought this is what we'll clarify today, that I was talking very much about what the National Cancer Institute was saying, what we're talking about, what's not approved, and what we're doing in clinical development. But the concern, and I get it, I get the FDA's concern that they needed for me to clearly distinguish the difference between what's approved and what's not approved.
Okay, then I want to know this too, because I thought we had a great conversation. To be blunt, I thought that you were clear on this, but I'm not the FDA, and I get to your point there, fickle bunch. So with respect to the conversation that we had about your drug, what was the concern they had?
The issue really was that they considered my podcast with you promotional speech, which then fell under very strict FDA rules. First of all, then somehow we should have put this in front of them first, but obviously it was a different vehicle as a podcast. So my response, so let me just give you my response, was to immediately respond to the FDA and really clarify the context of the discussion that we had. So because the FDA considered our speech under promotional, I'm only allowed to speak about what is in the label, meaning the package insert, about its indication. And then once I mention the name Anktiva, I also need to explicitly spell out the risk issues associated with that drug when given. So any other discussions off-label would be considered not appropriate in a promotional setting. And if I speak about the clinical development and the pipeline and aspirations to cure cancer and the science, it has to be explicitly clear that it's not approved. So look, as I said, I get it that the FDA's concern is about encouraging consumers to use a drug that's approved, but also informing the consumer about any safety issues. I understand that concern. But I think really to clarify to the FDA, the issue surrounding our podcast, really the conflation in their mind of my discussion with regard to the science in IL-15 and its potential activity under clinical development and its confusion when I use the word Anktiva. So once I mentioned the word Anktiva, the FDA's policy is that I need to explicitly identify the approved indication and importantly spell out the risk or safety profile. I did indeed mention Anktiva during our podcast was approved only for bladder cancer, but that's not enough. So, Sean, if you don't mind.
But can I just say this? I'm the one asking the questions, right? Meaning, when I asked you a question, I thought you answered it openly and honestly about what was available and what was not. And again, I'm not a doctor. I took first aid in like 8th grade, so I don't have any training in this. I admit that. But I get if you're promoting your product, if you're at a conference or if you're giving a speech or you're paying for television time. But when you're doing an interview and I'm asking the questions, I think you've always been open and honest and transparent, because I ask, okay, well, where could I get this, or how could I do it? Like, I don't know. I get it, but I'm also kind of like that. It sounds like you've got to be a human lawyer walking around all the time.
It's basically that. I think, so I live personally in a very strange world now, right? I am the owner of the LA Times. So free speech and First Amendment is really what I live for in the LA Times. I'm a scientist and clinician. I look after patients. I'm a inventor. I develop drugs that I think will make an impact. But sadly, I'm also the owner and founder of Immunity Bio with an approved product. So now I fall under First Amendment, but I also fall under the FDA policy that has real policy under what speech I can do under what I consider promotional. So you're right. Our conversation, in my mind, during that time was me under the context of speaking about IL-15, speaking about the patients that I have what I call single patient INDs, in which I get authorization from the FDA because it's unapproved to give them treatment for where they have lung cancer, brain cancer, etc. But I think the concern was this confusing to your audience? Was I, in a funny way, presenting or promoting Anktiva for its proved use of bladder cancer? So if you don't mind, Sean, I would like this purpose, and thank you for giving me the audience an opportunity to clarify so that there's no question that I explicitly, and the purpose of this podcast with me, at least from you, is to really clarify. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read directly from the label and the safety so that there's no confusion to your audience. So if I find the label directly, if I may read,
sure.
Anktiva is an IL-15 receptor agonist, FDA approved for use with BCG for the treatment of adult patients with BCG unresponsive, non-muscle invasive bladder cancer, NMIBC, with carcinoma in situ with or without papillary tumors. That is the label. I didn't fully say BCG with BCG, and I didn't want to confuse anybody that Anktiva is going to be used as a single agent. I didn't want to confuse that in the bladder you have to put it intravesically, meaning, and I didn't want, at that meantime, when we do it in our clinical development subcutaneous, I also needed to actually read the safety information when I say that in the promotional setting. So I apologize to you for taking the time. But
I don't need the FDA coming to my house, so go. Let's go.
It is important for you that your listeners also aware of the risk of treatment to ensure we're providing balanced information. So patients and providers considering treatment with Anktiva should be aware, number one, Anktiva labeling includes a warning for risk of metastatic bladder cancer with a delayed cystectomy. So let me put that in English for you. The natural cause of this disease in which we got this approved are patients with bladder cancer, what I call BCG unresponsive. The only danger with these patients is they go from unresponsive to muscle invasive and lose their bladder by having what we call a cystectomy. The standard of care for these patients, after they failed everything, including BCG, is to have their bladder removed. So the warning that the FDA is asked to say is that delaying cystectomy could lead to the development of muscle invasiveness or metastatic bladder cancer, which could be lethal. So if patients do not have a complete response to treatment with Anktiva, and even after a second induction Anktiva, they should reconsider cystectomy. That's one thing I need to state if we mention Anktiva. Next thing I need to state is Anktiva is for intravesical use only, meaning it's for the bladder. The current development we're having is subcutaneous use, but that's not in the label because it's for lung cancer, breast cancer, etc. Obviously, it's not in the bladder. It also says that Anktiva may cause fetal harm. because of the potential risk to the fetus, female, the reproductive potential should use effective contraception. And then the most common adverse reactions, including laboratory test abnormalities, including creatinine abnormalities, dysuria, hematuria, urinary frequency, maturation urgency, urinary tract infection, increased potassium, musculoskeletal pain, chills, and pyrexia. And for more information about Anktiva, please talk to your doctor and visit anktiva.com, where you can read the full prescribing information. That is considered the safety information that I should make clear to you.
That's called an FDA hostage video. That's. I mean, look, I get it, and I appreciate. But what was the remedy that they proposed? Is this what they wanted you to do? To say, okay, we got to go back out and tell Sean Spicer's audience, here are all the risks, and here's the only intended approved use?
Well, we proposed the remedies. The first remedy we proposed is we took off the video off our website, our podcast. And then, as you know, I wrote to you to say, would you have, there's three options. One, you can take it off your delete it, remove it, or whatever. Or if you prefer, I would come on the show to clarify and make sure that there was no misconception or misleading of your audience.
I like to think I have a great show. I know I do. I know a lot of important people watch the show because I hear from them, including some very, 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 very senior people in the United States government. But here's my question for you. I don't know that, like, how does something like this happen? Like, I would love more people at the FDA to watch the show. I cover a lot of MAHA topics. I cover a lot of wellness issues. And frankly, I wish more people in the government and the DHS writ large watch the show because they could learn a little something about what's going on out there. The Secretary Kennedy and others are pushing. Do you think that somebody was out to like somebody clearly watched the show and ratted on you?
Is that a question, Sean?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I like I said, I mean, I'm just wondering, I mean, is this doesn't sound like there's a bunch of dudes at the FDA or dudettes that are sitting around watching the Sean Spicer show every night. I wish they do. I hope more people do. But I guess my question is, like, this seems a little weird. Like somebody wanted to come after you.
Well, in the warning letter, the FDA referred to what they call their bad ad program, and that they received some of this issue information through the bad ad program. Who that may be, or what was received from them, obviously I have no idea. But they did acknowledge they have this program, and somebody sent them, whoever watched your show.
Well, I have a couple ideas. Okay. So let me ask you this: in terms of the drug itself, and by the way, can I just ask you, like, again, if this is not about your drug, just as a medical professional, for example, in the GLP-1 space, for the longest time, before I think it was like Wegovy became an issue, there was a lot of doctors prescribing Ozempic, which is a type 2 diabetes drug. Here's me telling you this. but people would say, oh, the doctors can prescribe these GLP-1s off-label, or for to be honest, any off-label. Like, again, not with respect to your drug, just so that we're keeping this above board. But can't medical professionals generally take an FDA-approved drug and use it for other intended consequences if they believe it's in the best interest of the patient?
The answer to that is yes. I think let's talk about the medical practice of medicine, which is independent of me as a founder or anything about Anktiva. Right. So the medical practice is, yes, doctors could approve anything off-label. The question, however, is when it goes in this off-label issue, the burden then goes on the patient, meaning the reimbursement of that drug by the insurance company in off-label is then in the hands of the insurance company.
Okay.
So while the doctor may approve it off-label, then the patient may have to come out of pocket, or the doctor may have to come out of pocket, or the hospital may not receive reimbursement. So on the use of off-label, it's a viable option, provided you could afford to pay for the drug. which then says access, meaning who could afford to pay for the drug? If you're wealthy, you can. If you're poor, you can't, right? And if in the Medicaid world, I doubt that they would approve a reimbursement for an off-label use. So it's all about reimbursement.
So look, you and I have known each other 10 years, and I would like to think that you bring your best stuff to the Sean Spicer Show. But I see a lot of people really interested in talking to you, hearing some of the things that you're doing in medicine. You're a very popular guy, a well sought after guy. What made this I just don't get it. I see your clips. Sometimes you send them to me. Sometimes I get a Google alert that you've done something. I follow you. Why? I don't get it. I'm still baffled. Like what was unique about this interview in your mind or your team's mind that is different from, and again, I'm glad. I mean, in the sense that like that you and I can have these discussions that are more probing, or if you will, and that aren't as staid maybe, but I see you get a lot of media attention. You're a very smart, popular guy who's doing some amazing revolutionary things. And I was like, why this show? Like what was it so unique? That did your lawyer say to you, well, this phrase was different than you've ever said before?
Well, I don't know. Truly, obviously, I truly don't know. The fact, as I said, there's a bad ad program. Somebody may have reported your show, Sean. You have a popular show. So
I appreciate. I mean, again, it's a badge of honor to some degree, but you're a very popular guy. I'd like to think I'm the only guy who has you on, but I'm not. And you say you've become very, very sought after because of the amazing things that you're doing in the field of medicine. Leave it at that.
Well, I think, it just ironically happened to be the time when the Saudis approved us for lung cancer. And I've got to be very careful about that because that is approved only in Saudi Arabia for subcutaneous use for patients with lung cancer who failed checkpoint inhibitors. Now, there are companies that make checkpoint inhibitors, and these are failed checkpoint inhibitors. Again, I have to be very explicitly clear to your audience. I'm not talking about any approved in the United States. This is approval in Saudi Arabia. We happen to do that call right after that. So now we're least out of the country in lung cancer. I have no idea why your podcast was highlighted.
But here's the other thing. You again, not only are you very sought after by media types, you're very well connected. You were brought over. I remember in the president's trip to Saudi Arabia. There's the B-roll. I'm watching TV. President of the United States is coming in and getting greeted. And there, I'm like, I know that guy. Like I'm sort of like, to me, it's like going after somebody like this. To me, I'm scratching my head saying to myself, here's a guy who's doing a ton of good, who knows a lot of people, who's making some advances. And here we are with the government coming after you for an ad that didn't air and a podcast with me.
You're right. I do know a lot of people in administration, and I have a lot of discussions with people in administration. Obviously, those conversations, we can have offline. I'll keep it private, but again,
I guess my point though isn't. I'm not trying to divulge any conversations. I'm just saying to myself, if the government, you are not the bad guy. You are a guy that's helping people. And are very well known. I mean, like you have a strong track record, all that. And this to me is what infuriates a lot of people about government, which is you're the good guy. You are trying to help people. I said this before you came on the show. Every time I mention my conversations with you, I have you on the show. You've been on a few times. People call me and it's like, I've got a cousin, a coworker. Can you help get me in touch? And I know you've got to get flooded. I think last time we talked, you said you had like 20,000 people in the queue. This is something that I believe that we should be trying to figure out how to move forward, not put up roadblocks against.
Well, I certainly hope the FDA hears that really we're trying to do good. We're trying to really improve the healthcare. We're trying to actually really be the sort of epitome of what MAHA is supposed to be about, and making America healthy again, right? And so, look, as I said, I have no knowledge of either motivation or who made that call or that, but I do agree that we would comply. We take very seriously not promoting any false or misleading information. We take that very seriously. We hope that this now puts it behind us. My goal, as you said, in my life and hopefully my legacy, is that I'm here as a physician, a scientist, trying to make Americans and the world a better place for patients with cancer.
Where were you in the process of dealing with the FDA in terms of additional approvals, et cetera, when this letter came?
This is all in our SEC documents. So I have to be very careful about that. But we've said very publicly we've refiled the sBLA for patients with papillary disease and bladder cancer at their request that we should go refile. The first time we did that, if they requested that and they had a refuse to file. This time I'm hopeful now that they've got all the data that the disease of cysts and papillary is where it is. We've also said publicly and that our naive bladder cancer is in the process. We presented to the FDA before our discussions on the lung cancer, and we hope to have ongoing discussions with them. That lung cancer trial, which was completed, was the basis of, again, the approval in Saudi Arabia, not in the United States. So we continue to work with the FDA, and I hope this corrective action of what we're doing now and everything else that we've submitted in our response letter gets it behind us and we can move forward.
To the best of your knowledge, as a guy who's doing this, is this like other companies that get letters like this? Or again, I don't know that you know the answer to this. I just wonder, is this like standard operating procedure? Because for me, it's the first time I've ever been cited in an FDA warning letter. But do they fire these things off a lot?
I don't know if they fire this off a lot. I do know they put out a lot of letters initially because it's a high priority for this thing of direct-to-consumer advertising.
Okay. That's the ad part. That's not me. Like the discussion.
Well, consider what we're doing. What we're doing right now, direct-to-consumer. Actually, I think.
Crazy.
Yeah, but that's what I think.
So the thing that's interesting to me about letters like this, and the reason I was asking the motivation question to some degree, is they don't happen in a vacuum. So it's not like they send the CEO of your company or you an email and say, "Hey, can you fix this? Like, we got a problem with this. Can we talk about it?" Right? This is a public letter. When that letter came out, how did that affect? You're a publicly traded company. You just mentioned your FCC filing. How did that letter affect you guys?
Well, I don't talk about the stock or stock price, but I think it's very public.
It's very public, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think whatever the timing of the letter and the stock prices is public, but I don't think I should comment on stock prices because I really make it a point of not talking about stock prices and how to fix it. I think the more important thing is we've acknowledged the letter. You and I are doing this as I committed to the FDA, and I thank you for giving me the time to clarify to your audience. And more importantly, could we now just move forward? The most important thing for me is I'm trying very, very, very hard to take the science and my knowledge, and I'm grateful for this country giving me 30 years and 40 years of really good scientific knowledge of how we can make the world a better place. And that's what my goal is.
And so right now, do you guys see other countries? You mentioned Saudi Arabia in particular. Like, is your goal to continue to expand the reach of these things in other countries?
Well, I'm so excited to tell you we're now approved in 34 countries with bladder cancer. We approved.
What?
34 regions, right? So we've moved. Look, Sean, there's such importance that this is made accessible to the world.
Yes.
And when I reached out to, for example, Saudi Arabia, they moved very fast. When I reached out now, I was at UAE in Abu Dhabi, and they moved very fast. They are moving very fast. I was just called. Just came back from Portugal. The health minister wanted to meet with me. They're going to move very fast. I've now been called to Greece, and the next one is the UK, etc. So I think, again, I don't want to put out anything here that is not public information. It is public that I'm traveling to Europe. I'm traveling to the Middle East. We are now approved in 34 regions for bladder cancer, at least. And for the first time, we now have approval one outside the United States for lung cancer in patients who failed checkpoint inhibitors. So I think the word is out there that now, again, I want to be sure that I'm not conflating Anktiva with the science of IL-15.
Okay.
What I was trying to convey to you in the last podcast, it is the government that said that IL-15 has the potential to cure cancer, quote unquote, the potential to cure cancer, was said by the government in 2007 that IL-15 was ranked number 1. And the government also said in its document, the ranking was based on a molecule that could treat all tumor types or different tumor types. That is what I was referring to you when we had our podcast. Unfortunately, I said the word Anktiva because Anktiva happens to be an IL-15. And then that, in their mind, brings up what we call promotional
Can you explain the difference?
speech.
So I again, this is my naivete here. Is Anktiva is the brand name, IL-15 is the actual molecule?
Is correct. So your body and my body creates IL-15. So let's just so again to clarify your audience, I'm not talking about Anktiva. I'm talking about how your body works.
Okay.
Your body.
I'd like to know how my body works sometimes. That's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show.
Well, that has to take us maybe a half an hour.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't be good for the audience. But
No.
But let's talk about how your body works. Once you have an infection, once you have sepsis, once you have COVID, once you have flu, once you have HIV, once you have cancer, your body will react to grow T cells, to grow NK cells. How does it react to do that? The only molecule in your body that does that in that reactive mode is IL-15. In 2007, the National Cancer Institute held a workshop that included the FDA, included the NIH, included AACR, included ASH, included everybody, and they did a ranking of 100 plus molecules. IL-15 was ranked number 1 in 2017 with the potential to cure cancer. Those are the words in the headline of the paper and the report. That is what we were talking about. So aspirationally, if one then could actually develop IL-15, not from your body, but as an injection, called anything you want, that could be very useful potentially, hopefully in the promotional setting. And that was a discussion I'm hoping to have.
Okay, I get that now. So in other words, the IL-15 exists in your body, but a potential drug, randomly, not naming any names, a drug that would reproduce that molecule would be the commercial version of what our bodies already produce.
That's correct. And NIH tried to develop that for years and years and years and could not. And the reason they could not, because it has such a short half-life. When your body has that, it turns on and maybe lasts for 2 minutes and gone. So if you could potentially develop that molecule where you could inject it either subcutaneously or put it into the bladder and it activates the NK and T cells, and have a longer half-life, then it could be a useful molecule. Interestingly, I can say what is in the label, that the mechanism of action of Anktiva, and I'm saying Anktiva, that's in the label, section 12.1, that says its mechanism of action is to proliferate NK cells, CD8 T cells, and memory T cells without proliferating the suppressive Treg cells. Quote unquote, that's in the label. I'm allowed to say that.
Okay. This is fascinating to me. By the way, it's funny. You're a doctor or a scientist. I think to the extent that I have any authority, and I'm maybe the government will come after me for saying this, I think they should bestow an honorary legal degree on you now, because you've got the equivalent of going to law school. In the final minute that I have with you, so I don't have I don't. You talk about all these countries that are. I'm sort of, again, a little amazed. I only have a minute left, but like, is our government reaching out and saying, hey, we see the potential here? Is somebody in our government, you don't have to name names, but like, I'm fascinated by the fact that everyone else wants to talk to you about this, but is our government doing this?
Well, I can't name names, but these very senior government officials are sending me patients to ask me to go to the FDA to receive what they call single patient INDs to treat these patients as part of the program.
So I mean, again, my words, if you're listening, FDA, my words, not the doctors. It's fascinating to me. It's sad to see that people who could help move this along to make it available to everyone aren't maybe doing as much as they could, but they're willing to call to get help for a loved one or a coworker or whatever. I think this is what's wrong with everything right now. And I know you've been a champ going out there helping so many people to the extent you can. I mean, we're going to add philanthropist to your title too, because you've done so much good for people. So doctor, thank you for coming back on. Thanks for everything that you're doing on this. I wish you all the best of luck. And I'm sorry that you're not getting more support. So again, thank you. I appreciate you coming on and clarifying it so that people understand what's at stake here.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you for the time.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We have a great show tomorrow for you. RNC Chairman Joe Gruters is going to be here to talk to us about where we are in the midterm, some of the lawsuits they filed on election integrity, all that kind of stuff. We're going to break it all down like nobody else will. Thanks for being here. Remember to go out on Amazon right now. Do it right now and order Trump 2.0. I appreciate all your support. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you back here tomorrow on The Sean Spicer Show.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.